Welcome to the Citizens Club of Springfield. I'm Joyce Narduli, I'm president, and we are thrilled to see you all here this morning. This is fantastic. We have a very important lesson about the history of Springfield. In keeping with our little theme, we're going on here with our celebration of the 250th anniversary of our country. It's important to ensure that we all know the true history of our city to help ensure that we learn from it and never repeat it. Our mission is to promote civic awareness through education and engagement, developing an informed community to shape our future. But before we get to that, I'd like to thank our media sponsors, as always, NPR, WMAY, the Mayor's Audiovisual Department, as well as today's coffee sponsor. Mike Murphy, are you in the room? Let's give them all a hand. Thank you. We also want to thank the Community Foundation for a generous grant that will allow us to create our first website, and you're going to hear more about that very soon. And we're very close to announcing that our July annual meeting will be when we give you a lot more information about our plans for the future. So July 26th, mark it down. As you know, our programs are always free and open to the public. And we appreciate your membership, though, with the annual $40 fee due now. So you can make that contribution at the back of the room. It's pretty easy. You can write a check to the Citizens Club, or you can use our Square Link check-in at the table. And also, if you would like a heads up about our programs in the future, make sure we have your email address, because we send out more information on the emails than I give you at this brief opening. And lastly, the thoughts and opinions expressed by our program guests are solely their own, and we take no responsibility for them. Tim. That said, we're very pleased and honored to have Timothy Crawford with us this morning. Tim is a playwright and winner of the 2024 Mayor's Award for the Arts, and was the 2023 Artist in Residence for the UI Performing Arts Center's Our Stage, Our Voice program, which culminated in 3 performances of his play, Outraged, Terror in Springfield, 1908. He's had several other short comedies and one-act plays performed at the Valdez Theater Conference in Alaska. You can ask him about that. This morning, Tim will be interviewed by Carly Shank, who heads local arts and art education programs of the UIS Performing Arts Center. Carly is also busy as an actor and director in several local productions, as outlined in that email policy forum notice that we sent you all. So let's please get started.
All right, thank you so much, Joyce. Let me give you a map for what we're going to talk about until we get to questions. I'm going to talk with Tim, interview Tim a little bit about his evolving life as a playwright primarily, and then we're going to talk a little bit about his process of creating Outraged, and then spend the second half talking about an upcoming restaging of Outraged slated for this August before we open it up to questions. So Tim, my good friend Tim, is not from Springfield. Would you tell us a little bit about your evolution prior to your arrival in Springfield?
Well, good morning. To try to do this as briefly as possible, I have it's been a long journey back to Illinois. I started off in Chicago, and I was born on the south side of Chicago, Inglewood. Anybody? Yeah. Oh, hey, right. And then I graduated from college at 16 and went away from home, away into Minnesota. I went to undergraduate school at Moorhead State College in Minnesota. I see some nods. Those people who are nodding know that is the twin city with Fargo, North Dakota. So it's cold and it's white. But they had a wonderful theater program, and that is where I got introduced to the theater. I did acting, directing, stage management, box office, front of house. I never got to do lighting, so I really respect the work that light And then, when I graduated, I moved to D.C. I moved to D.C. to go to law school. And when I graduated from law school and passed the bar, thank you very much, I was a member of the D.C. bar until I retired from there a few years ago. But my primary work was with the National Education Association. And when at the end of my career at the National Education Association, I was managing their legal services programs. And I got an opportunity to do something else, which was to come to Springfield to work with the Illinois Education Association as an interim. And that was going to be a 6-month job, just to give myself a break from what I was doing every year for about 20 years at NEA. And I never went back. They offered me the job, and I worked here until my retirement. But as I was approaching retirement, I was like, what am I going to do? I don't want to be one of those people that retires and goes, oh, I wish I hadn't retired. So I decided on 3 things I was going to do in retirement. One, I was going to write plays. So I started doing that just before I retired and started writing plays and sending them out. And the second thing I wanted to do was learn to speak Italian. And the third thing I wanted to do was travel. And the ideal travel was to travel to see one of my plays being done in different places. So let me catch you up to last summer. Last summer was the culmination of that dream of traveling to see my play being done in another place. I went to Valdez, Alaska to see 2 of my plays being performed, and then from there went to Fairbanks, Alaska to see the most recent performance of Outraged Terror in Springfield, 1908. Juneteenth in Fairbanks during their Juneteenth celebration last year in 2025.
You did some of this playwriting, but for your work. In fact, isn't that how you first came to write something?
Ooh, I wasn't even sure you knew about that.
We've been friends for a while, Tim. Not that you've told me all your stories, but...
So yeah, I had this experience of getting a call from a consultant that was working for NEA. And she said, hey, did you talk to Dorothy? And I said, about what? And she said, well, she was supposed to reach out to you a few weeks ago before she went to Paris to ask you about writing a play to start off our 2-day mandatory morale meeting. I'm like, what? So she talked to me about what she wanted to do, wanted that play to do, which was sort of bring people into the room in a way that says, we understand that you've got trepidation about being here, not trepidation, skepticism about being here. But, we're open, it's going to be fun. Sit down, settle in, we're going to have 2 days of enrichment. So I said, oh, this is a challenge. This is a challenge. So I took the challenge on with 3 weeks to go. It was a 15-minute play that I wrote, and they gave me a cast. And I would tell you more about it, except I've written a play about it. So, and that play is one that I'm working on the latest revision of, and there is a local director who is very well renowned, who is interested in that play. So you may be seeing that play here in the next couple of years.
But the original play, I do love the title of the original play that you wrote for the mandatory meeting.
Yeah, well, there's actually more to that. But I'll say that the original title for that play was The Beatings Will Continue Until Morale Improves.
The reason, in addition to it being funny, the reason that I wanted you to say that is just because you have written a lot of comedies, and that's kind of been your genre. So when it came up to possibly write a play about the events in Springfield in 1908, that certainly didn't scream comedy to anyone, although most human dramas have some comic moments in them. I don't think playwrights sit down and start with, I am going to write a comedy. And in fact, you've talked a lot about the way plays evolve and come out of you, which I think is different for different writers and different genres of writing perhaps, but especially in playwriting when you are creating something that is going to come out of the mouths of actors. You have kind of indicated to me over time that you let those ideas come to you and those characters speak to you, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. A lot of the comedy, well, most of my writing has been comedies. The impetus for writing this play actually came from I was watching a video on YouTube. The video started and Ken Page's face was on the screen. Currently at ACLU, but former NAACP president, and something about his demeanor got my attention, so I leaned in, and he introduced Preston Jackson, who had, because they were unveiling, I think, in that video, the mural that he did, and I know he's coming here in August to be the featured speaker at the opening event of the 1908 Springfield Race Riot citywide commemoration. So I'm watching this, and as they start to talk about it, this is the first I've heard of it. I've been in Springfield for several years, and I'm really kind of surprised it's the first I'm hearing of it. And the more I hear about it, the more I think, ooh, there's a potential play in this. But I didn't do anything about it. Where I actually sat down and wrote the first sort of description of what I thought I was going to do was when I was filling out the application for the artist in residency at Our Stage, Our Voices that you were in charge of.
So during the pandemic at the UIS Performing Arts Center, of course, we couldn't have events, and we are dreaming up, what we're going to do when we reopen, which incidentally is what we're doing right now, for those of you who are aware that we've been shuttered for a year while we do a major plumbing project and also a remodeling project on the auditorium. So we're dreaming during the pandemic of what we're going to do, and one of the programs that our director, Brian Reeves, was interested in developing was something that would enable local artists from underrepresented communities locally to be able to have their art developed and their art seen in some way, their performing arts scene. And so we named that program Our Stage, Our Voices. And for the first few years, we had an artist in residency program where we would work with an artist for an entire year, and that would lead to some kind of final project that we really could invite the community to. But we also wanted it to include learning opportunities for the larger community. So in the case of Tim's residency, he offered a series of playwriting workshops, and we had people who were new to playwriting entirely, as well as people who did have some good experiences with playwriting, come and write 10-minute plays with us. And then Tim also developed, and he applied for the program based on the strength of this idea that he had, that maybe this program now was the time for him to sit down and write that play that was inspired by seeing that video and realizing that these events in Springfield were completely off his radar. And Tim applied, and actually I was able to meet Tim a few months before the application was due, and it was really hard to get us out of that coffee shop that day because clearly this was a partnership, the two of us as well as with the Performing Arts Center, was going to work really well and was going to touch on a lot of things that were important in the community and were missing. So in addition to the information about the race riot kind of missing from the general consciousness, it's risen in the time since then. But in addition to that, we also used to have a great culture of local playwrights in Central Illinois, and just with changeover of people involved in our theater scene, we haven't really had that. So that's another thing that Tim's residency really did, was start to build a core of local playwrights, and we are continuing that. There will be an event next winter where I think we've got 9 10-minute plays that were written by local playwrights that will be presented in the UIS Studio Theater as we continue to develop that. But that's a little bit about Our Stage, Our Voices.
So I want to make sure that I don't leave you all hanging about the idea of intuitive writing. So coming off of this, when I started as the artist in residence, I was in my research phase. And my idea was I would research until about April, and then I would start writing. So looking back, I was able to look back at my computer and see when I wrote the first words for Outraged, and it was September. I was, and we had the first performance of a reading in November. So I did a lot of research, and I also did a lot of procrastinating, I realized. But the process of writing is so enjoyable that I told myself after it, I was like, I'm not going to make that mistake again of making a large research phase, have a short research phase, write, and then research the stuff you need to research after you get involved in the writing. So while I'm writing, though, I don't have a full outline of where I'm going to go. Had pretty much no idea how the play ended when I started. I knew who the main characters were, but there's a point in the play where a character shows up on the porch. It happens in the play, it happened in my brain, just like that. The characters were sitting in the kitchen, they were talking, there was a noise, there was a person on the porch, and I'm like, oh, who is this? And I'm typing, it just sort of flowed out. And that character, a couple of things, that character also speaks in sort of a stream of consciousness, and it was reflective of what was going on in my own brain. So as an intuitive writer, I just let it flow. And then it was only later that I realized that person was a personification of my cousin, who I had not seen for years and years in San Diego, about a month before I wrote that scene. So that, I'm really curious. I'm trying to get my cousin to come because I'm curious to know if she sits there in the auditorium and sees that character, whether or not she'll recognize herself. I have a feeling she won't.
This brings us around to talking about, what the story arc is of Outraged. So there are probably people in the room who feels like they know nothing at all about the 1908 race riots in Springfield. Raise your hand. So this was me around the time that we were starting this project. So I started to dig in as well. Who feels like I know the basics? I know some names of characters involved and stuff. Okay. Do we have any experts? Great. All right. So Tim did all of that research so that he could write a play about everyday people. So he could write a kitchen drama, as we sometimes call it, about people who would have had the experience of the race riot. And of course, during the pandemic, we had the anniversary of the Tulsa race riots. And I consumed a lot of media about that myself to come to understand just what all of the impacts of an event like that were, and the rippling effects across generations. Not just this many people died, and of course those households were disrupted, but just what it meant to that community overall. So that was helpful for me to consume, to understand the direction that Tim was going in, which was, let's show what a family would have experienced. They still reference all of the historical figures and the events that were happening, but that was a really key element of this, I think, to show regular Springfieldians having this experience.
I thought it was really important for me not to try to tell the whole story of the 1908 Springfield race riot. Actually, I didn't feel that was something I was actually capable of doing. But as a person who wants to write about the human experience, I thought, okay, let's focus on a family. Focus on a family. So the actual plot of the play is about a reconciliation, which is interesting, a reconciliation between the lead character, Bonaparte Baker, and his brother-in-law. They have a conflict, and they are trying to reconcile and resolve that. And, you know, I went into that thinking about the idea that there's still reconciliation to be done around the events of 1908. So there might be some parallels there, but the real story in the play is about resolving that issue in the context with a backdrop of all of this historical anti-black violence going on in the city. That also means that, and I'll share this with you, it's in the play. Bonaparte Baker arrives in Springfield on August 14th, 1908, the day that the riot started. But he has come from a journey back to Springfield that began in Wilmington, North Carolina. And as you may know, 10 years earlier, there was a coup d'etat and massacre of black people in Wilmington, North Carolina. There's a movie, there's a documentary about it on PBS, and there's a book called Wilmington's Lie that delves into that. But one of the things that I'm bringing up now, I think you can kind of get it if you're paying attention in the play. Bonaparte came from that. It's been 10 years. He's now in Springfield for the Springfield violence, and he's on his way to East St. Louis. And some of you know in East St. Louis in 1917, there was one of the worst incidents of anti-black racial violence in the history of the country.
Since you just said anti-black racial violence, we talk a little bit about the naming of this event. I always hesitate.
Yeah.
Tim has spoken a lot about, and I've read a little bit too about, we just commonly call this the race riot. But why is that maybe not the best terminology to use?
Well, one of the problems is that the term race riot muddies the water. It makes it unclear who was rioting, who did the violence, who was the instigator, what was the result of it. It's that makes it a little unclear. One of the things that I like to say is if the Knicks win the NBA championship and the fans get a little excited and they do a little rioting, we can forgive that kind of rioting. So if you use that same term for anti-black racial violence, it makes it seem like it's not a big deal. Or it also could make it seem, and some of you have probably already picked up, it also make it seem like black people were doing something wrong. So interestingly, I got an idea not too long ago that I want to talk about this in a play, not just here in front of you. So the third play in my Illinois anti-black racial violence cycle will take place in East St. Louis in the present, looking back at the events of 1917, and we'll get a chance to have people talk about the terminology and the meaning of what happened and who gets to tell the story and how.
All right, so we are in your artist in residency year. I'm going to timeline this. You started working with us in the spring of 2023. We have some playwriting workshops in the fall, get some other local playwrights on board. And as you mentioned, you start writing in September, and in November, we have a staged reading, which simply means that actors are carrying scripts around, that we haven't built a set or are wearing costumes yet, but we have a draft of Tim's play. He wants to put it in front of an audience, and we had a completely full house, so that we could get some feedback from the audience and look ahead to truly producing it. And I know you learned a lot from that experience.
I did, and it was structured so that every audience member was given a piece of paper too, so that they could write down their comments. We also had some conversation in the room, but we tried to keep that short, but everybody had a chance. And I had a whole stack of yellow sheets. We used to refer to them as the yellow sheets. Carly says, "Have I seen the yellow sheets?" But the other thing I want to note about that is that the great Tony Young played the lead role of Bonaparte Baker in that reading, and I cherish that. And it's wonderful to me that he was the first person to read and create that role in front of an audience.
So Tony was a longtime actor and singer in Springfield, and we lost Tony sometime in the last year and a half. He was, for Outraged, he was just involved in that first reading. But I have no doubt, just because of the depth of Tony's delivery of everything, that you were able to take a lot and develop Bonaparte a lot based on what you got from Tony.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's another piece I think that, in terms of the journey, that feedback from the audience and seeing Tony do what he did was very motivational to me. It's interesting how in my background I have been super lucky as a playwright. I admit that up front. Nearly everything I've written has been staged before an audience, performed before an audience. I have a couple that I'm still working on. They'll probably show up sometime, but they need a little work. But I've been lucky in that way. The thing about this play that is that we started out with in November referring to it as a play in progress. So the play progressed from that reading in November to a fully performed with a set. People.
Many of the photos up here are from the February production.
Yes, and there was 3 performances. The last performance was February 11th, 2024, which was my birthday. My sister came out from Phoenix, Arizona to see the show as well. And that performance was not the end of the story. The play that is being done in August is not the same play. I mean, it's the same play, but it's been modified and updated and changed and improved over the 2 years. And the next version, the next reading of that play was in Valdez, Alaska. So I did a lot of work on it between February 2024 and when it was read in Valdez in June of 2024. And an interesting thing that I just thought of the other day is that I had to submit that. So what I submitted was the same document of what we did in November. It was massively changed by the time we got to February. So when I got the notice that they accepted the play for Valdez, I realized they were accepting the November piece. So I was like, oh, the casting has changed a little bit. I don't have the same, all the same characters. So they got it, what they ended up with was changed even from February. And the next time, well, let me just say something about that performance. Valdez has a very good reputation, and they attract a group of very polished professional actors who perform. Some of the people who are also playwrights will sometimes be able to perform in plays as well, and I've done some of that. But they also get a cadre of high-level professional actors. The person who played Bonaparte Baker in Valdez is an Emmy-winning actor named Kim Estes, and he was amazing. And there were other professional actors in there, but the person who played the character I mentioned earlier, who was based on my cousin, named Lucretia, that person was impressed by the play and wanted me to give her the rights to do it on Juneteenth in Fairbanks the following year. That's how I ended up traveling to Fairbanks to see that version of the play. And that was the newest version before this version, because I've done work on it since then. I'm very happy with where we are right now.
We have seen it go through a lot of evolution. Could you talk a little bit about who the characters are? You kind of got two groups of characters in this play.
Oh, yeah. So there's the family, and outside of the family, there are two characters who come into the play. One of the characters works at the barber shop of the second lead character, Henry, the brother-in-law of Bonaparte, and the other characters, my cousin. But the main characters are Bonaparte Baker, Henry, who is his brother-in-law, and Henry's wife, Joni. They also have a son. They call him Junebug. He doesn't like it. And it's their interactions that pretty much shape what goes on in the play. But outside of that kitchen where most of the action takes place, we have a group of people that I'm calling the Kakundi, and they are like a chorus that bring you into the play and shape some of the ways that the media and people outside of the house were what they were doing, or how they viewed what was happening in Springfield during that. So the framing of that, the framing of the 1908 violence, a lot of that is handled by this chorus, and that has evolved. That's probably one of the things that has evolved the most. In the first reading and in February, it was a group that I called the townspeople, and it was basically four white people, then three white people, saying ugly things to the audience. And I was like, I can do better than that. So what the Kakundi are now is they are a diverse group of friends. They're clearly people who know each other and work together, kind of like maybe a group of Gandhi dancers on the railroad. Anybody know what a Gandhi dancer is? Yeah. So they work together to help tell the story, and they also so they do some of the same things that the other group did by explaining some of the ugly things that were done and said, but they are able to comment on it as opposed to being in tension with the audience.
And tell us about that word, Kakundi.
Oh, so I don't want to say too much about it, but I struggle with calling them a chorus. I originally called them the townsfolk, and then townspeople, and then chorus, and I didn't like any of that. So I went into the process of trying to find a word that I really liked, and this Kakundi is a Swahili word that is, if you add a couple more words to it, you get basically Greek chorus. I didn't want the extra words, I just like Kakundi. So that's the word I use, and I explain in the play, I don't want to say here, why that name, using that term makes sense within the context of the play.
I have really enjoyed watching this play and listening to it evolve, because after our February performances, I was able to listen in on a live stream to the first reading in Alaska in Valdez. And then more recently, as you're getting ready for this remount that will be right next door at the Peggy Ryder Theater at the Hoagland, hope you signed up for the chance to win a pair of tickets coming up in August. Every time I get to read the script again, I have had this experience with this play the whole way through, and I can see where Tim's thought is and what he's responding to, why he's made some of the dramatic shifts that he has. He keeps referring to the cousin character. In earlier versions of the script, that cousin character came in really late in the play, and it just felt like such a shame that we were only meeting that character then, and also what did it mean to be meeting that character after so many of the events? Well, now he's brought that character in earlier, so we can see Lucretia earlier.
And even more important to me is I had a deficiency in this script. When it was read in Alaska, I thought I could slip it by the audience. And one of the people in the audience is a playwright that I have a lot of respect for, and he came up to me and he said, "Tim, here's something you ought to think about." And I was like, "Oh, damn, I thought I could slip it by you," and I didn't. But the thing was that the plot of the story, that is the resolution of the dispute between the brother and the brother-in-law, yeah, you know what I mean, between the Bonaparte and Henry, that dispute got resolved actually before Lucretia came on. So the plot is already resolved, and she comes on and tells a whole bunch of provides a lot of information. It's kind of in a way it's an information dump, but it's done in a way where it is driven by her character, but it didn't add to the plot. So that's the biggest thing I've reworked. I've reworked it so that her being there adds to the plot, helps to tell the story, and it helps Henry to figure out the thing he needs to figure out in order for the story to be resolved. So I feel very good about that, and I think it's also a lesson as a playwright. It's a lesson that there's something that you really love. Like, I love this character, Lucretia. I love the way she talks. But I had to realize that the way she was portrayed in the script didn't really add to the story. It's the kind of thing that if I couldn't figure out a way to make it add to the story, I would have had to cut that character. That's a lesson to all of you.
I'm going to throw out a theater word that some of you might be familiar with, but it might be one of your takeaways from today. And that is the word dramaturgy. Yeah, dramaturgy, Turgy, or when you have a person who does that, they are the dramaturg, Turg. And at my freshman theater class in college, where all the freshman theater majors at Northwestern are gathered. This is our one theater class. First session, the professor says dramaturg, and somebody in the front row says, "Drama what?" So you've filled that purpose for me. Thanks for that memory. A dramaturg is a person who, in a playwriting process, or even in the process of mounting an existing play by Arthur Miller, you might have a person sitting right beside a playwright or sitting right beside a director to make sure that all the pieces fit together. And when you're dealing with something historical, it is certainly making sure all the historical pieces fit together. And so in a more ideal world, there would have been a person to do all of that research that Tim was talking about doing and just bring it to Tim and said, "Hey, you wanted to know about professional baseball and white baseball versus black baseball in 1908. Here's all the research." But we didn't have that person. Tim was that person with the help of a lot of people locally to get some of the details of 1908 in Springfield, as well as just your general library to understand black baseball, white baseball, the significance of the profession of being a barber and what that meant in 1908 in Middle America, that was a profession that a lot of white men had black barbers, and that was a very respected profession and a white adjacent profession. So Tim put a barber in the play. Not that he didn't know some of these things. I'm just throwing out some like little pieces of history. The baseball stuff is very interesting to me because that was certainly something I didn't know anything about. But yes, all of that dramaturgy feeds into the play, as well as it's also dramaturgy that your playwright friend pointed out that the plot had kind of resolved before Lucretia arrived. Because I have been involved in other processes where we've worked with a playwright and it wasn't necessarily a historical piece, but there still needed to be a dramaturg sitting next to that playwright to make sure that whatever callback made sense, the timeline of a play, the relationships that characters have, their use of specific words in the dialogue, all of that comes together.
Yeah, one of the things that I would have really loved to have was somebody who researched the language. Like, what words did people use in 1908? What were the new slang words that were being used in 1908? And I had to do that. I did some of that research myself. I probably would have wanted more, but I am where I am. But there's a couple of words that I did find that I just really think, oh, this needs to go into the play, and some slang. So like current 1908 slang, and I was very happy to find that. It would have been nice to have somebody else find it for me. The other thing about baseball is, like, I did a lot of research about baseball, and there's about 3 lines in the play, maybe 5 about baseball. But there's a lot of stuff behind that. One of the things that happens in the play is, I don't want to give too much away, but one of the things that happens in the play is a kid is reading the newspaper, that day's newspaper, and he's trying to conceal what he's actually doing, reading in the newspaper. So when his mom asks him what he's reading, he starts reading about, he says, it was Cy Young Day in Boston yesterday. So that's me showing off. That's like, I read this newspaper and I found this article that said it was Cy Young Day in Boston on August 13th, 1908. I'm going to put that in the play.
But those Easter eggs are great. Yeah. Okay, we're close to the time where we want to open it up for questions, but you mentioned, I want to talk to you about one more thing, be thinking about your questions. You mentioned your 3rd play in this cycle of Illinois plays. So tell us more about, is there a 2nd play? Okay, so let me make clear, the 3rd play I've not written a thing about. All I know about is basically what I just told you. But the 2nd play I've actually started working on. I've actually written a good chunk of it. And it is called, right now it's the working title is Bronzeville, because it takes place in Bronzeville in Chicago, where when I was born, that's where we lived, in Bronzeville. And in 1919, there's a thing called the Chicago Race Riot that took place most broadly in Bronzeville. And right now, there are 37, I believe, what they call stumble stones. They're artwork that is put into the sidewalk to commemorate the place where these 37 people were killed during the 1919 Chicago Race Riot. So in my play, the character who is the 11-year-old boy in Springfield in 1908 has grown up. He's gone to the Army in World War I. He's been discharged. He was in France. He was discharged. He lives in Chicago. He has a business called Sarah's Hand Laundry on 47th, right off of State Street, 23 East 47th Street. And the play starts in 1919 after the riot, so it's not during. It's like October. And that character is about the same age as my grandfather, so I'm writing as though it was my grandfather. Yeah. So I'm having fun with that. This one's maybe a little lighter
because it's not taking place during the riots. The riot is taking place after. So there's a little more distance. But there's a lot of stuff going on in Chicago and in the country in 1919. We're just past the Spanish flu. There's the Prohibition is going to start in January. The women's right to vote is either about to be voted on or it's going to be not ratified, but excuse me, let me just say, Prohibition's already been ratified. It just doesn't go into effect until January. And I believe that the amendment to give women the right to vote is voted on in 2020, 1920. Oh, and there's one other thing that takes place in Chicago in 1919. Anybody know what it is, the thing I'm thinking of? Black Sox, that's the one I'm thinking of, yeah, that's the one.
What questions do you have for Tim? Oh, I've got Joyce coming up. Oh, she's got a microphone. So hopefully. Yep.
I got it. Okay, so we have a lot of questions, but first, this was a fantastic view of what happens to make a play, and how appropriate to do it at the Hoagland, where you come to see plays all the time, and how great to understand it's hard work to bring a play to the stage. So thank you, Tim, for all the behind the scenes this morning. It was great. And just so you all know, it's August 13, 14, 15, 16, right here. And before you leave today, we're going to pull out the drawing, and 4 of you are going to go home with free passes for the play, I believe. Thank you to Tim. And so now with your questions. Who wants
Just to clarify one thing, the 13th is the day that the ceremony, the commemoration begins, and that is the day that Preston Jackson will be at the library, at the Lincoln Library, not the Presidential Lincoln Library, and the first performance of the play is the 14th.
Great. So please stand, state your name, and just ask a question, please.
Thank you. Julio. Without giving too much of the play away, could you tell us what happened in Springfield on August 13th, 1908? That is that backdrop that you're talking about. So my mother and everyone here could understand what happened in Springfield that even created that.
Well, let me try to do this really briefly. There are two things, there are two events that I want to talk about that happened before August 14th. The first event was Joe James was arrested and was in the county jail on August 14th. He was arrested sometime after the 4th of July, sometime in July. And he was arrested for the murder of the clergy Ballard, who was a white North End resident, who it was said was stabbed by a black man who had entered his home and had run out, and clergy tried to run after him. His other people in his family, they pursued him, but they did not find the person. They did find a person sleeping in the park nearby the next day, and they arrested that person, charged him with murder. With basically, he said he had passed out drunk, and they basically had, the only evidence was he was nearby, basically, and he was black.
And he had also just arrived in town. He was not a longtime resident of Springfield.
Correct, yeah. So I also believe he was 17.
Seems right.
Yeah, young man. Then on the 13th, Mabel Hallam, the police were summoned to her home where she's claimed that she had been assaulted.
Outraged.
And outraged.
The newspaper said.
by a Negro, as she put it. That turned out to be false. She recanted about a month later, but they arrested George Richardson based on her identification of him. And so George Richardson and Joe James were in the county jail, and the mob came to the jail to demand that they be released into the mob so that they could be lynched. The next thing that happened was the sheriff, knowing that he was responsible for their safety, because sometime recently in Illinois, a sheriff had allowed someone to be taken from their custody and lynched. That sheriff was sanctioned. And so the sheriff in Springfield knew that he had this responsibility. He arranged with Harry Loper to get those prisoners in a car, get them to Sherman, get them on a train, get them to the McLean County Jail.
And Harry Loper was just a businessman who owned a restaurant and owned a car.
Correct. Yeah. And the mob found this out. They were finally told that the mob had now grown to maybe 5,000 people, and they were told that the prisoners were not even there, and they took their fury out first on Harry Loper. Harry was. I think if they found Harry, he would have been in trouble. But they destroyed his restaurant and burned and danced around his burning car in the street. And then from there, they went back to the black business area, which is actually very near the jail, and destroyed that area before moving on to where people lived, not that far away. What would that area be? Yeah, thanks. Mason, Madison, 11th, 12th, 9th, Jefferson. Yes, that area. Yes. And they burned people's homes, sometimes with people in it. So that's the basis.
And there were several deaths of, there were several white deaths, and then there were two black deaths. There were two lynchings.
Two lynchings, yeah. And there was a whole list in the newspaper of people who were injured or dead. It's commonly believed that the black deaths were undercounted. So.
Thank you. Oh, Gail Simpson. Thank you, Tim, for this play. I got so much to say, but I'm not. I'm just going to ask a question. Can you speak to a riot versus a massacre, and how was the audience in Alaska? What was their response to this event that happened in Springfield?
So there is a clear desire to add meaning to how we address these events. And as we talked about earlier, the meaning is muddled by the term race riot. So one of the things that I think we're hearing and seeing across the country is the term massacre. I believe Tulsa is now referred to as a Tulsa massacre. And one of my focal points is that Wilmington coup d'etat and massacre. It was originally referred to as a race riot for a very long time, when it was referred to as anything at all. Because as you know, there's sort of a massive desire for silence around some of these things. But the Wilmington events are now called the Wilmington coup d'etat and massacre, and there's some discussion about. I believe East St. Louis is also referred to as a massacre now. There's some discussion around numbers, and this is kind of the part that is a little that makes Springfield kind of an issue, which is, can you call Springfield a massacre if more white people died than black people? And I don't think that's a worthwhile discussion. Maybe it's a worthwhile discussion. I don't think I think that discussion misses the point, which is the point is not that some white people who were involved in mob violence and initiated a horrendous, or as one of the books is entitled, Something So Horrible in Springfield, and caused thousands of black people to vacate the city forever. I don't think that the shying away from the term massacre just because people believe that that there's some value in weighing the numbers of people based on their skin color who died. So I think massacre would be an appropriate term for the Springfield events, and I think there's more discussion of that. However, we do have something that intervened in a way, and that is the intervention is that we do now have a 1908 Springfield Race Riot National Monument. And right now is not the time to mess around with that because it's a little tenuous because that is a presidential proclamation that based on the Antiquities Act, which means it might be able to be reversed by a presidential. So we don't want to get into that right now. Let's just keep that the way it is. So if you feel like there's some tension in my conversation here, that's part of it. I don't want to raise that issue right now, but I think that's an issue we can talk about at a later date. Oh, so Alaska. So the most recent production, the most recent reading in Alaska, it was a reading with music stands, and this was in Fairbanks, and that would be the closest to what the version that you're going to see here in August. This was really interesting because it was in a small venue. People paid $25 to get into this venue to see this reading, and it was very well received. I also did a talk back after it, and people gave me their opinions of it, and also I also had a conversation with the NAACP. I had dinner with the NAACP after that. But the general, first of all, there's 6 black roles in the play, right? So there were 6 black people on the stage, and there were more than that in the audience. So I think that's one of the questions. Are there black people in Fairbanks, Alaska? There are. There's an NAACP, and there was a Juneteenth celebration in town. So there was a mix of nationalities in the audience, and I would say the play was very well received. I sat down and talked to people afterwards, and one of the things that I kept getting from people was, we have stories here in Fairbanks about our black community. Could you write about us? So I think that was very positive.
Okay, hi. I'm trying to figure out where to begin. As you know, we talk about 1908 because I told you I played George Richardson a while back from the plays they had. Okay, here locally, and I'm trying to figure out in what perspective did you bring about the characters and which ones you wanted to put within the play to make it as it is? What I know about Outraged is from what you're telling me now because this will be my first time seeing it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm sure a whole bunch everyone else here is as well. So my biggest and one simple question is simply, how did you pick each character and why did you pick them to be within this play?
So Bonaparte is the lead character, and I picked him because he's got this sort of Odysseus background. He's my Odysseus. He's come from Wilmington. It's been 10 years since he's been in Springfield. He's actually originally from Springfield, so he journeys back. We don't get into detail about his journey back, but he's back now, 10 years, and he has to deal with his family situation now that he's back. His brother is a barber. I wanted his brother to have a business on the levee, So that's why he's a barber. Pookie, who is works at the barber shop, who shows up at their home, is from Arkansas. I wanted to have different people from different backgrounds in the play, so to show that the black community is not a monolith. They come from different places. They have different ideas. So Pookie is from Arkansas, and he talks about the fact that some of his folks went on to back to Liberia. So that get to touch on that by having that character. Joni is someone who wanted to be a teacher. That's the wife of Henry. She's got a son who's 11, so there's a mother role in there, but she's also wanted to be a teacher. Couldn't be a teacher in Springfield because they didn't allow black people to teach in Springfield till the 50s.
I'm going to have to stop you right there.
Okay.
We're at time to close, and we have a drawing to get your blue tickets out, and we have 2 winners. They were just drawn in the back of the room to save a minute. The first one is 222942. Okay, Jay, congratulations. And the second one's 222943, believe it or not.
Oh.
And who has that? I don't. Somebody have it? Because if you don't, we'll draw another one. 943, there you have it. Okay, congratulations. Our next program, July 24, you have those little reminders in your seat, so pick one up. And our great, is that the right day? July 26, yeah. And what is the Friday? 24? Okay. And we have a great panel on SNAP benefits and their impact on neighbors, so we hope you'll all join us for that very informative program. And make your comments in the back there. There's a little box to drop a note. With that, let's all thank Tim for everything he's done for us and told us about today. And Carly, thank you both. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.